Pam Bondi walked into Congress thinking she could dodge questions and spin the narrative. What she walked into instead was a political firing squad armed with facts, timelines, and receipts. Within minutes, her polished confidence cracked, revealing a defensive, combative side that seemed less like a seasoned attorney general and more like someone cornered and desperate. The questions were sharp, the accusations even sharper. Foreign lobbying, luxury perks, million-dollar stock moves, and the pardons no one wanted to talk about. Every answer she gave seemed to dig the hole deeper. This wasn't just a tough hearing. It was a public unmasking, the kind of moment that makes headlines and leaves political careers in ruins, and it was only the beginning.
Chairman and Ranking Member Meng for holding this important hearing, and thank you, Attorney General Bondi, for appearing before us today. Madam Attorney General, I serve in addition to the Appropriations Committee as a ranking member of the Committee on House Administration. I sent you a letter last week along with my Republican counterpart, Chairman Brian Stile, requesting an increase in federal prosecutory resources to address threats against members of Congress, particularly in light of what happened last week in Minnesota, that tragedy. In 2024, the U.S. Capitol Police identified and received nearly 9,500 concerning statements or threats against members. Federal prosecutors have only secured 8 convictions so far, and the heightened threat environment demands an all-hands-on-deck approach. Will you commit to assigning an assistant U.S. attorney or a special assistant U.S. attorney in each of the 94 federal districts to, at least on a part-time basis, investigate and prosecute threats against members of Congress?
So thank you for bringing that up, and I take that very seriously. Not only what happened in Minnesota was horrible. I've spoken to Keith Ellison. I've spoken to Amy Klobuchar about that. It's horrible. We are involved in that. The FBI was involved. Our U.S. attorneys are involved. Many of these are district to district. So the way we're doing that is, I will tell you, my National Security Division is involved in all of those and assisting in those. We meet every single morning and we discuss that. But many of those, Minnesota, will be handled in the state in which it happened. Another one is
So, may
Governor, I'm sorry if I can keep going. I'm sorry. I don't mean
Quickly,
to
though.
I filibuster. Governor Shapiro and what happened in Pennsylvania with Governor Shapiro. I've spoken to Governor Shapiro. We are working hand in hand, our U.S. attorney with the district attorney there, hand in hand, just like in Minnesota. I made sure our U.S. attorney and our district attorneys there were working hand in hand. Political party doesn't matter when something like this happens. And I also want to make sure all members of Congress are safe as well.
Okay, and I would reiterate, Chairman Stile and I think Chairman Stile and I agree that at least a part-time in each of the 94 districts would be appropriate. Let me change topics for just a moment.
I'm really quick on that. Yes, we're doing that through our National Security Division, so I think that's already in the works, and I would be glad to meet with you in a secure facility to talk about that.
Very good, thank you. Continuing, in addition to my role here, the committee that I serve on as an authorizer oversees Capitol security as well as federal elections, so I'm closely following the aftermath of January 6th. Recently, several defendants who received presidential pardons related to that day are now arguing in court that the pardon covers crimes like, for instance, illegal firearm possession discovered in a search of an individual's home in California months after January 6th. What's your position on whether the pardons cover these separate offenses?
The pardon power rests with the president, not the Department of Justice, and some of that is pending litigation, and I cannot discuss pending litigation.
Well, I'm not asking you about who has the right to a pardon. I think as the Department of Justice in February wrote, the pardon is an act of grace which removes the punishment from a crime a person has committed. It further said, in its effect, the granting of a pardon is in no sense the overturning of a judgment of conviction. It is an executive action that mitigates or sets aside punishment. So as the chief law enforcement officer, what's your opinion, not the president's power of whether he can offer a pardon? That's pretty clear in the Constitution. But for crimes committed unrelated to January 6th, would you suggest that the pardons would cover activities or crimes potentially committed outside of that by the same person?
Well, I don't know if you're referring to Joe Biden pardoning his son after he said he would not pardon Hunter Biden, or the
No, I actually
commutation
referred
of
to
all
January
the
6th. I'm sorry.
all the sentences that
Well,
The people that were on death row, I've met with those families.
No,
All of those sentences were commuted. I'm not going to comment on pardons on either side of the aisle.
so, well, I'm not asking about either side. I'm asking, you're the chief law enforcement officer in the United States. You have a responsibility directly, but you swore an oath to the Constitution, not the president. Want to know what your views are on the extent to which pardons cover potential crimes committed by individuals who've been pardoned but unrelated to January 6th.
Do you mean the ones that were done by the auto pen? I'm not going to discuss
right.
anything that
Mr.
could be
Chairman,
or not be
I
pending litigation.
respectfully, you know, Ms. DeLauro accused you of filibustering. I think that's the height of filibustering. This is a serious, serious topic. And for you to suggest that you don't have an opinion or to divert to other things that have nothing to do with January 6 pardons, I think is frankly demeaning to your responsibilities and your job. With that, I'll yield back.
Pam Bondi, once seen as a loyal Trump defender, came into this hearing with a reputation already marred by controversy. Her tenure as Attorney General under Trump was marked by accusations of ethical lapses, questionable decisions, and a closeness to the president that critics said blurred professional boundaries. But nothing prepared her for what Congresswoman Marlene Dean had in store. The room was tense, the cameras were rolling, and Bondi's composure was about to be tested in real time. Dean wasted no time. She went straight for Bondi's ties to Qatar, asking if she had ever registered as an agent of a foreign principal under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Bondi admitted she had, though she tried to soften it by saying it was for anti-human trafficking work related to the World Cup. But the admission was on the record, and the defensiveness in her tone told its own story. Rather than calmly addressing the concern, Bondi lashed out, accusing Dean of past political statements and trying to flip the script. The shift felt desperate, and the exchange was only warming up. From there, Dean zeroed in on an eyebrow-raising purchase. Trump had recently announced he'd accept a $400 million jet from Qatar simply because it was prettier than the one he was using. Dean's question was simple: did Bondi as Attorney General give legal advice that this was permissible? Bondi refused to answer, hiding behind the claim that she could not discuss counsel given to the president. The dodge was obvious, and it fit a pattern that was becoming clear. When faced with uncomfortable truths, Bondi sidestepped rather than clarified. But the scrutiny didn't end there. Dean brought up another issue: the DOJ's disbanding of its national cryptocurrency enforcement team, followed by Trump's son launching a $500 per membership private club in Washington. To the average observer, the timing raised serious conflict of interest concerns. When asked if she or her ethics team had any worries about these overlaps, Bondi didn't answer the question. Instead, she pivoted to talking about child exploitation cases her office had prosecuted. Important work, but entirely unrelated to what she was being asked. It was another glaring evasion. Then came the most explosive revelation. On April 2nd, the very day Trump's chaotic tariff announcement sent the markets tumbling, Bondi sold more than $1 million worth of Trump media stock. Just days later, the stock plunged 13%. Dean's point was clear: Bondi had avoided a massive loss by acting at the perfect moment. Was this sheer luck, or a case of insider positioning? Bondi's response was to downplay the event entirely, claiming she had actually lost money overall and suggesting anyone accusing her otherwise needed a class in financial literacy. But the numbers spoke louder than her words, and the timing was damning. If that wasn't enough, the questioning shifted to one of the most controversial topics in modern politics: the scope of Trump's pardons for January 6 defendants. The legal question was straightforward: could a pardon for January 6 crimes also shield someone from unrelated crimes committed later? Bondi refused to give a direct opinion, dodging with references to other political figures and unrelated cases. The chairman called it filibustering, and it was hard to argue. She seemed less concerned with clarifying the law, and more concerned with avoiding a headline that could damage Trump or herself. It was a display of political self-preservation over transparency, and the deflection spoke volumes. She wasn't alone in this tactic. The broader MAGA movement has often tied itself in knots over January 6, offering shifting stories to suit the political moment, from calling it a peaceful protest, to a justified rebellion, to blaming Antifa or the deep state. Each version contradicted the last, creating a fog of confusion meant to muddy the waters. Enter Congressman Jamie Raskin. While Bondi ducked and weaved, Raskin cut straight through the noise. He reminded the chamber that impeachment has historically been reserved for genuine crimes, corruption, bribery, tax evasion, not for political disagreements. His focus was on the framers' intent, the checks and balances they built to prevent tyranny, and the urgent need to defend those principles today. Raskin laid out the gravity of the moment. In his view, the country is in the midst of a dramatic constitutional confrontation. Since day one, Trump has acted less like a president and more like a monarch, trampling rights, undermining Congress, and disregarding court rulings. The framers anticipated this danger, dividing power vertically among federal, state, and local governments, and horizontally among the three branches. That system is now being tested to its limits. Outside the hearing rooms, the public was making its voice heard. On June 14, Trump's birthday and Flag Day, he staged a $45 million military parade in Washington. In response, millions across the country marked No King's Day, protesting in more than 2,000 cities. It was a reminder that constitutional democracy depends not just on institutions, but on the people willing to defend it. And there is reason for cautious optimism. State attorneys general from Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Jersey, and Illinois, all present at this hearing, have been racking up legal wins against Trump's policies. More than 328 lawsuits have been filed since Trump and his allies took office, and nearly 200 injunctions have been granted, often by judges appointed by presidents from both parties, including Trump himself. This is what principled leadership looks like: standing firm in the face of political pressure, using the law to uphold the Constitution, and refusing to let the machinery of government be turned into a personal profit center. Bondi's performance, by contrast, was a masterclass in evasion, revealing just how deeply some in Trump's circle have been willing to bend the truth to protect themselves. In the end, the hearing wasn't just about one attorney general's evasions. It was about the broader fight for accountability, the need to call out corruption wherever it hides, and the importance of leaders willing to stand up to power, even when it's uncomfortable. If you believe in shining a light on the truth, cutting through the spin, and holding power accountable, make sure you subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and drop a blue heart in the comments to show your support. Stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll see you in the next one.